Dave, good to have you back. How are you?
Hey, Dan, how you doing, my friend? Good to have. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, let me start with the important question. We were talking about favorite comedies, favorite movie. So let's say there's a rain delay and you get to pick the movie you play in the clubhouse. What would you pick?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I think I'd probably say Fletch.
Wow.
I think it's twofold because number one, it's one of my favorite all-time comedies. Number one, and number two, I think that it introduces something to some of our players that what real comedy is.
Best baseball movie ever made was what?
Best baseball movie ever made. I guess I got to go. Field of Dreams or The Natural for me. I'm going to go Field of Dreams because I love James Earl Jones.
But did you ever have any moments in the movie Bull Durham? Was your minor league career like Bull Durham in any way?
Well, it was my minor league career was certainly paralleled his in the sense that it was extended.
You spent more time in the minors than you wanted to.
That's right. So I think that's a lot of it. But I think that that kind of perspective was very good, and I completely appreciated it.
But what happens? You're probably 27, maybe, or 28 when you get first called up. What's that phone call like, or when you get called in and they say, how old were you when you got called up?
Dan, it was 99, so I was 27 years old, and I was in Rochester, New York, playing for the Buffalo Bison. So this was parts of my third year in AAA. And so I'm sitting in the hotel with my wife and finished the game and really not having a great year and get a phone call from the manager going, what is going on? Why am I getting a call from the manager at 12:30 at night? And so Jeff Datz, my former manager, called and said, I'm going to Cleveland. And it was go back to my room, and my wife and I are jumping on our bed, and it was probably one of the best times of my life.
It's a little bit different, though, because you were going up there. Who'd you have? You had Manny Ramirez. You had Kenny Lofton. Was Alomar there?
David
Jim
Justice,
Thome there?
Robbie Alomar, Jim Thome, Sandy Alomar, Travis Fryman, Paul Ostenmacher, Doc Gooden. I mean, we had everybody.
Do you have to introduce yourself to everybody?
You know what was great is that those players just really embraced me, and I really didn't introduce myself or initiate any conversations. Those guys kind of just all welcomed me, and then the next thing I know, I'm in the lineup with Omar Vizquel. I'm leading off in Tampa, and it was a night Wade Boggs got his 3,000th hit, so it was a special night.
Didn't he homer on that 3,000th hit?
He homered off Chris Haney. That's right. Kissed home plate.
He's Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager, in first place in the National League West. I don't know how confident you are now. Great season, first place, but when you see Kershaw all of a sudden going through some pain, what goes through your mind, and how long do you think he's going to be out?
There's certainly that moment, Dan, where you see that throw that I saw him make in that second inning, and you hold your breath, and so obviously I scurried on down with the trainer, and until you get the kind of the prognosis, you're holding your breath, and fortunately for us, the scans came back very positive, and it was a lower back strain, so the disc was intact that he had last year. And so with Clayton, like I've said, I don't like to put timelines on him, and I don't know. I mean, I do know, Dan, that he's going to be back pitching for the Dodgers this year, so that's a good thing.
Are you consulted if they want to go out and get a pitcher, if Yu Darvish or whoever it might be? What role do you play in that?
There's conversations, I think that every front office has with the manager daily at this point in time, and trying to figure out the pulse of the clubhouse and a need that we might have, and so we have those conversations daily.
Do you expect to make a move?
If it's the right move, and I said this before, Dan, is that the beauty of where we're at is that we're not in dire need to do anything, and I think that. I believe our club can win 11 games in October. Can we get better? Absolutely. Can any team get better? Sure. But if it's the right move to better our club, I know that Andrew and the guys will make the move. But if not, then I just don't think that we're going to reach for any player because we don't need to.
Can you peak too soon?
I don't think so. I think that if things are in place, I think if you have talent, which we have, I think if there's a micro focus in getting better each day and winning each game, and honestly, I think that the wins, we don't chase wins. We just try to chase playing good baseball and competing essentially against ourselves and playing the right way. And, the wins, these 70 wins right now, Dan, are just a byproduct of how we go about playing baseball.
I know at the Laker games, you always see the people in the front row, but when's the last time you paused and you saw somebody famous in the crowd at a Dodger game?
Okay. So we have famous people all the time, every night.
Okay.
But I will say this. Last year in September, Ice Cube was at one of our games. And sitting above our dugout, me as a 45-year-old man, so listening to NWA as a junior in high school in my Nissan Sentra with my little 2.8 subwoofer speakers in my Sentra, I was pretty awestruck.
If I told you could have been at that point, at that age, you could have been Ice Cube or Rickey Henderson, who would you have taken?
I still think I'd have been the Man of Steel.
You would have been Rickey?
I would have been Rickey, but Ice Cube would have been a close number 2.
You have to have a Rickey Henderson story. It seems like everybody's got a Rickey Henderson story. You got one?
So playing for the Dodgers, we trade for Rickey. So I am driving to the ballpark, and so I'm with Rickey at this point in time for probably about 3 weeks. And he's coming off the bench playing some left field. I'm playing center field. So apparently he does this radio interview, and they talk to Rickey about his role with the Dodgers. And so apparently he said he's just happy to be a Dodger and happy to be here, and all I want to do is help Robinson be the best leadoff hitter he can be. So then I show up to the clubhouse that day, and on the top of my locker is the name Robinson. So for 3 weeks, he's looking at the big board saying Dave Roberts, but apparently it was Robinson. So at that point in time, everyone called me Robinson. So that was my Rickey story.
Oh, Rickey B. Rickey.
Everyone's got one.
Oh,
that's right.
They should do a 30 for 30 on Rickey Henderson and just do stories on Rickey, because to me, Rickey is actually underrated. If you look at what he did and his impact on the bases as a base stealer and as a leadoff guy. What did he have, 78 leadoff home runs or something crazy like that?
That's right. I mean, it's unprecedented. I mean, this guy completely changed the game. And you talk about how Barry changed the game, and you knew where Barry was up in the order. I mean, this guy right there changed the game. You knew where he was at. And for me as a young kid watching him, it was certainly special. And this guy, I mean, what a body. I mean, even when I was with him, he was in amazing shape, and what a great man. But you go back to your earlier question, favorite comedy. I mean, you put some stuff together with Rickey, that would be pretty special.
I remember when he went down. Here's a couple of stories. I don't know if you ever heard these. He went down to the front desk, and he said that he wanted to have an alias. And they didn't know what he was talking about. He wanted to have an alias. He wanted to check in under a fake name. And he said, I'd like to have an alias. So he told the woman at the front desk what his alias was going to be. He also had a check that was framed that he didn't know that it was a real check. It was $1 million check. And he confirmed it to me. He framed it. And the team goes, accounting calls Rickey and says, you got to cash that. He goes, oh, that's real? He said, yes, that's real. Yeah.
Those are two special stories. And I'm telling you, this human, Rickey, is very underrated. And what a beautiful human
Rickey B. Rickey.
Rickey B. Rickey.
Yeah. We'll check in with you maybe some point during the postseason. Good luck, Dave. It's always good to talk to you again. Thank you.
Absolutely, Dan. Thanks for having me on, man.
That's Dave Roberts.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.